may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Ow! What big eyes you have, the kind of eyes that drive most mad. So just to see that you don't get chased, I think I ought to walk with you for a ways. What full lips you have, they sure look somewhat bad. So until you get to Grandma's place, I think you ought to walk with me and be safe.
All right, kids, it is day 5 of Commentaries of the Night. Joining me, as he always does, Dylan McCandless, Super DM64.
Hey, we're gonna talk about the Invisible Man. So sit right there.
It is very late at night as we are recording this. We hope it is for you as well, because these are commentaries that are meant to be recorded, or well, they're being recorded at night, but they should be listened to to help spook you out. So we hope you're following suit in that respect.
Is that a rule? Is that a rule we've established?
I think it's just I'm not throwing out rules to these people. I'm just giving a suggestion. It's just a suggestion. That's all I can ever offer. I don't like to lay down rules. And
I guess typically the horror genre is best experienced at night, you know.
Mm-hmm. Again, that's when it's harder to see things. You know, that's what helps out with scaring people, I guess, is that they, you know, fucks with their eyesight. Anyway, so yeah, we're doing the Invisible Man.
It really helps when you're watching a horror movie if you're also afraid that you might look out your front door at any moment and see scary skeletons. So
specifically that, because that's the thing that people are most scared of coming into their homes at night. As we discussed in the last episode, mummies not so much, but fucking skeletons. See, when Boris Karloff turned into a skeleton at the end of the movie, that's when people got the most scared in 1932, because they're like, oh fuck, he's coming after me now because he's a skeleton.
No, see, not skeletons. You're misrepresenting my argument here. Not skeletons. Spooky, scary skeletons.
I understand, but I think that the one at the end of The Mummy was also a spooky, scary skeleton.
I suppose that's a matter of taste.
Well, I didn't try it as a dish like you probably did, you sick fuck. Anyway, so we're talking about The Invisible Man tonight.
What?
The Invisible Man is one of my more personal favorites of the Universal Monsters line. Probably my favorite, because it's one of my, as we discussed in our top 5 video, top 5 classic science fiction films. It's one of my 5 favorite science fiction films. So
yeah, it was on that, wasn't it?
So, it's probably my favorite of all the Universal Monster movies. So we can get into that as we discuss. But I don't know, D, what's your take on it?
I mean, yeah, same here. I really love this movie, especially for Claude Rains.
Claude Rains,
the man, he just acts the fuck out of this movie.
Interestingly, his performance as a sound horror villain is, I guess, the best way to describe him, even if it's not wholly accurate, is the best, because his voice and vocal performance is the most iconic, isn't it? So I think he stands out the most in that way as well.
About iconic, I think Lugosi is probably the most iconic voice-wise. But if we're talking about like just a strong vocal performance,
but his character relies the most on it. He's in the bandages most of the time, and even when he's not, the voice really helps evoke what he's about, his personality, his intentions, and it all mixes together to really set up this character and tell you who this character is. So we'll talk about it as we get into the commentary, though. So we hope you have a version of Invisible Man from 1933 out and ready to go, because we are going to be pressing play on it in 3, 2, 1, play. Once again, we got fucking planes. I just want to say I find it a little unrealistic that this plane is flying in outer space.
A Universal picture.
Why is the NRA sponsoring this movie of all the Universal monster movies? Does this one have in it? We'll have to see.
I don't know. That's a good question.
So this is an H.G. Wells novel. Have you read the book?
I have not, and I haven't. I just haven't.
I've listened to the book of most of it. I never finished it. It's pretty good. The Invisible Man himself is less insane and is more driven to a place of isolation and anger based on how people treat him when they find he's invisible. And how he has to live. So
here we have Whale returning to direct this movie, which is a good sign because we all loved Frankenstein.
Frankenstein is his straight up tribute to horror, and this is him just making a straight up, over the top, entertaining romp science fiction film. I don't know how H.G. Wells would feel about this version. It's sort of faithful in the broad strokes, so I guess he would have been fine with it. And I think he had script approval at this point because he didn't like the way they did Island of Dr. Moreau, the Island of Owls. Have you seen that? Because that was also on my list.
No, that's another one.
But
you've recommended that to me before, but I've never gotten around to seeing it.
Yeah, so you should watch that as well. I think this is better. I mean, that was higher on my list, so there you go. But I think the reason why is the comedy, because the comedy really stands out in this as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Yes. This is sort of in a middle ground because it's more comedic than Frankenstein was, but less comedic than Bride of Frankenstein will end up being.
It's not as over the top. It's grounded more in reality, I think, but it's more cheeky, more playful. The situation allows more for that. You know, you want to have fun with somebody being invisible. You don't love it to be horrible murder and terrible and doing terrible things, because that's not what the original book was. Now, there is another book that Universal had to buy the rights to called The Murderer Invisible, which came out years prior, which was more of a guy who turned himself invisible and was this psychotic serial killer who did everything in his power to fuck over society, and he turned a bunch of rats invisible and tried to inflict the plague on the United States. So this is sort of a mix of the two of those, but it still leans more into the H.G. Wells story, again, because at this point he had a lot of sway in Hollywood, so he made sure it's as close as possible. Mrs. Hudson here is played by, what is the name of this actress? Do you remember?
I forget, but James Whale loves her.
I'm going to look it up real quick. This is taking longer than expected. I'm on it. All right, her name is Mrs. Hall, not Mrs. Hudson. It's Una O'Connor. That's her name. And she's also in Bride of Frankenstein, which we'll talk about sooner rather than later. Is that next?
Yes.
Oh, okay. There you go.
James Whale really loved her. He thought she was just fucking hilarious. And so he used her a lot.
Yeah, what do you think of her?
I mean, her shtick is kind of I think it circles back around to funny again, you know?
Yeah, I agree. She's better in this than in Bride of Frankenstein because she's more reserved in this. In Bride of Frankenstein, she's constantly screaming. She gets more screen time in this, though. In Bride of Frankenstein, it comes off as more of a cameo. But I like how sort of reserved we all start out here. You know, everybody's sort of cool with each other. We're engaging in a business transaction, and it's this slow build. But I also like I mean, this is in the book as well, but he's already turned himself invisible. It's not like we spend the first 10 minutes doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the first time I ever saw it, I was under the impression that, like, all right, it's going to start out with the scientist, he's going to turn himself invisible, but no,
This
he's
is
already
not
invisible.
The Fly, no.
Exactly.
Even though that is told retrospectively as well. I find it interesting that it says black and white whiskey up there. This is a black and white movie. I mean, I'm sure James Whale...
Well, the original Fly is told retrospectively. The remake is chronological.
Yeah, I was talking about the original. That is a great outfit I had to replicate for Halloween many times. I love being the Invisible Man because it's so easy. You just wrap yourself in bandages, put some sunglasses on, and then whatever clothes you have on around that doesn't matter because people will still get it. You know? And that's the beauty of a Halloween costume. It has to be that simple.
But you got to get the sheer nose that comes on
No, you don't have to do that. Not every Invisible Man does that. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that later on.
Well, if you don't want to half-ass things.
He doesn't do it later on, though, when he has robes on. And that look is kind of more iconic.
I like the shitty fake nose, though, because it's a way for him to try and fool people, you know. Also like the wig poking out the top of the bandages.
Right.
Nice touches.
I also like the scowl that the glasses help create. Or they're goggles, I think, technically. I like the little mystery he creates that he's had this horrible accident as opposed to being invisible. Or some of them suspect that he was, like, injured in a robbery or something that went bad, and that's why he's hiding out.
It goes without saying that the effects here that are at play are fantastic. I mean, 1933, what a fucking year for visual effects, eh?
Yeah, I mean, King Kong and this the same year. I think both massive steps forward in sound filmmaking, you know, just making something that still kind of holds up the test of time as being an entertaining, well-made production.
Well, what they did here with, you know, covering him in black, you know, compositing it all the way they did, a genius method, and really the precursor to what we have now with all the green screen and whatnot, that this is really sort of where all that starts. And it's very well done. It holds up in a way that it holds up in a way that it shouldn't, being from 1933.
It's black felt. Like, it shouldn't hold up. But the simplicity of the effect and the care they took to try and make it work makes it work most of the time. There's still some times where you'll see, like, his part of his clothes cut off. We'll see it in a little bit. There's some other interesting James Whale touches we're going to see here. Like, the way this house is set up, like, it's huge. You've got a laboratory in this corner over here. His daughter can just wander in whenever she wants. There's no walls. And right now, she's going to pass... Watch this. They're going to walk from this room, the lab / library / study, into like the living room. And we just passed right through that wall. It's like a play. It's like a cutaway. There's only 3 walls. You know, there's a wall missing so that way the camera can move through. It's very stylized and makes the whole thing feel more like a play. And that's something that James Whale always liked to play with in these early sound horror films. Like, yes, they're strictly narratives to the sound film medium with all of the stylization. Like, look at these shots. Like, you couldn't do stuff like this in a fucking play. But, you know, he thinks that it's necessary to tell the story that he's telling and create the atmosphere that he's trying to create. At the same time, the sort of self-aware fourth wall we have to create for ourselves in a play, he still wants to exist in the film. He wants to remind us what we're seeing is not real, so to speak. It creates this fantastic atmosphere, despite how grounded everything is, even more so than the last thing he did, Frankenstein.
Either that, or he just invented the open concept house, which is now all the rage on HGTV.
What the hell's that about?
It's like where you knock out walls and shit to make it all like fucking open. It's like a thing people are doing now.
Great. Let all the bugs and robbers come in, including me. I'll come take your TV. I could use a new TV.
The outside, not the outside walls. The fucking less rooms, the better. I'm like, no, I like having separate rooms for things.
Well, it depends. You want to have like one or two larger rooms, and then you have several smaller rooms. Duh.
Yeah, if you watch any of those like home renovation shows on television, it's always like, oh, we're going to knock out this wall, make a nice open concept. South Park recently did a great parody of that.
Everybody's just living in the wild.
Because as Stan Marsh said, no matter how screwed up the country gets, you can always count on white people renovating houses.
We just got our classic Una O'Connor scream. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, and I don't really know what she's screaming about.
He just fucking slammed the door in her face and knocked the dish out of her hand.
Is that really a screaming thing, though? That's more of like a, well, fuck you thing.
Well, it scared the shit out of her. She probably didn't expect that reaction.
She should have gotten angry, not scared.
She seems pretty pissed, but she didn't want to be pissed to him because she didn't want him to attack her. So she's sending him up to go fucking give him the who knows what.
I still feel like
he's gonna do it well.
I feel like the scream was a little bit uncalled for, though.
Listen, I wouldn't have screamed, but she did.
I mean, if she'd opened the
Would
door...
you like me to take you in a time machine back to 19 so you can prevent her from screaming?
I mean, if she'd opened the door and he'd had his invisible cock out, then I could understand. I mean, maybe he does, for all I know.
How would she know if it's invisible?
It's a good question. It could be just swinging around right now, and we'd have no idea.
I mean, it wouldn't be right now because only his head and arms were on frame, so... Hey, man, so listen, stop throwing chemicals around my room. Some of us have grown extra arms. It's a problem.
Because you got to realize later on when he's running around naked, like, it's all hanging out.
I understand. I understand the concept of being naked. You don't have to explain it to me.
Brings a whole new dimension to this story. You need to read Richards to make it...
He talks about he wants Kemp to follow him around with the blankets. That way he can warm himself up. I also really like that he tries to apologize to Mr. Hall so that way he can continue his work here, because he just needs a place where he can just be quiet and work. Realistically, he should be like Bruce Banner in the Hulk, find like a cave and go do his work there. But I guess there's no caves around here. It's very friendly of him to still help, you know. Get all the stuff packed up. But I think this is another example of just a well-paced monster movie. You know, it's not really a monster movie. A well-paced one of these movies, I guess is what I mean. Like, we had a nice little example of the little bit of reason and rationality that... what is his name? That Griff. And now these people have kind of driven the last of it out of him as he's failed to be able to cure himself and go back to being visible. See, this is the scream that's more, you know, unnecessary and done for effect.
What? Okay, so dude slams the door in her face and she screams and you're like, that makes sense. He throws her husband down the stairs and you're like, this scream's a little unnecessary.
I didn't say it's unnecessary. I said it's done for comedic effect, and that's why in the situation you can tell that it's not necessary. I don't know if the first one was for comedic effect. Maybe a little bit.
Why didn't he just come out invisible and then kill them knowing? And then gone back to his room and completed his experiments in peace?
What is he doing right now? That's what I want to know.
John, presumably.
I mean, he's got it. Again, how are we gonna know? He's invisible. He's invisible. That's what's the matter with him. I love that line.
You think it ruins the experience a little if you can't see yourself?
See, he did just go right back to work. He's not gonna let them fuck with his shit. He's a scientist, man. He's got science things to do.
Well, he should have killed all the people, and then they wouldn't be bothering him.
I don't think he's been driven to that place yet. Like it's sort of a gradual build. Like now he's slowly becoming a killer. But he's certainly unhinged. Like he certainly should know that they're not going to leave him in peace. But he thinks that that's what he deserves. Realistically, he's taking out all his aggressions for not being able to cure himself on them. That's the whole story here. And I just think the anger and self-reproach of Claude Rains is so powerful. And see, there's one issue with the effect there. When the bandages were pulled from the front of his face, you couldn't see them because they were behind the felt. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's one issue. But that's really good. There's my favorite line. Look at the way Mrs. Connor is looking at him. It's like, what the fuck's wrong with this crazy son of a bitch? They ran like sissies, and now he's going to be able to get naked and be proper invisible.
He's invisible, that's what's the matter with him. He's a regular John Cena.
See, I feel like being an Invisible Man would be totally easy if you had thermal glass, because then you could see yourself, and that would be all that would matter. You know, you'd be able to interact with the world a lot easier then.
Also, invest in tearaway clothes.
Yeah, also, realistically, you want to find some clothes that are invisible.
What would be best is if you could turn it on and off, I mean.
Mm-hmm. So you could you could like turn it off, turn it on to warm yourself up. I like this bit where we're ranting and raving at them about how it's so easy to do it if you're clever. Like, just rub this under your arm for a while. He throws it right at that picture of Mrs. Hall. That's great. That's all good stuff.
Pushing him out the window.
Strangles him. I don't think he actually kills him in the scene, though. Maybe he does.
Would have been easier to just push him out the window.
Oh, no, he does. He's done.
He's all eaten away.
His London bridges are falling down. Just like the fact that they did this in 1933 is just so impressive. And this is just something, it's something on a smaller scale than a King Kong, you know?
You know what I think I would do if I was the Invisible Man for a while?
What?
Just go haunt the house. just go fuck with it.
Oh, I would just hang out in the mall and just steal everything. Oh my god. I would just become the worst kind of criminal.
How are you going to steal it, though? You have to be naked. So you can't, like, stick it in your pocket. So people will just see, like, whatever.
Walk out with it. Yeah, of course. What can you do? They don't know that invisibility is possible.
They're gonna grab it.
I'll put it up my butt so that way that it'll also be invisible.
Well, it depends on what you're stealing, you know.
Also, if you're clever about it, you wouldn't get caught.
I mean, that might work if you're stealing, like, a keyboard. What if you're trying to steal, like a TV or something?
I think you could totally get away with it if you're clever. Otherwise, I would just like, yeah, you're right. I would go pretend to be a ghost. I would put like some clothes on though.
But then they won't think you're a ghost anymore.
Well, you put like a jacket on, and that's it. And then they'll definitely think you're a ghost.
it would kind of like it would kind of be like when you're leaving a hotel room and you just like rub yourself on things. It's like, yeah, fuck whoever gets this room
I
next.
don't think this idea that helps that was like the active agent in making him invisible that slowly drives you crazy that Griffin didn't know about. I don't think that's in the book. I'm pretty sure it's not, because I don't think that a physical active thing that makes him go crazy. I think it's just the psychological strain of being invisible. Which, again, I think is more interesting. Because there was sort of a natural build for him going crazy. I didn't need the active agent in the invisibility formula to drive him crazy.
I think it's a much tidier way to explain it, thus tightening up the plot for a film purposes, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is only like an hour and 10 minutes, so.
And he's pretty much batshit crazy for, like, I mean, we're like, what? How far in are we? We're like
21
minutes
in, yeah.
He's already back in, he will be for the rest of the movie, so.
I mean, again, it's gradual in the sense of what he's doing. Like, he's strangled one person so far, and he stole a bicycle, so that's all we've seen him. And now we're only just sort of discovering, you know, we only know a little bit about who he was before he went invisible, and what exactly happened to him to make him invisible.
Right. I mean, if he just gradually went crazy because of the strain of being invisible, you know, just psychological issues associated with that, it would eat up most of the runtime of the movie.
Yeah, that's why it works better for a book, obviously.
And we wouldn't have any of this fun stuff that's about to happen.
All this stuff with Kemp is what I think makes this movie so fun, because it feels like it's like this murderous, scary, almost like buddy kind of movie, you know, like because the Invisible Man kind of forces him to be his colleague and his friend in this situation and help him out. You know, Kemp obviously fucking hates him because, I mean, for multiple reasons, like he's jealous of him for having their boss's favor and being Flora's love interest and all that, and he hates him. So this is just rubbing it in, threatening him while he's invisible. Kemp is more emotionally invested in him in the book and in helping him. But quickly it turns into, I'll fucking kill you. Because at that point he's gone crazy. He tells him a story about like what made him decide that he's going to try and like topple the world by being invisible.
I like that we see the cushion on the chair depress, so we know that his ass just fucking plopped out of that.
So he's still just threatening our dear Kemp here with a fire poker.
It's a nice detail rather than just have the chair start rocking, you know.
So he's in that chair. Didn't happen. He's lighting up. I want to see if the smoke in the lungs. Nope. Damn, that would have been cool. But they couldn't have done that in 1933.
No. Well, realistically, you shouldn't be able to see that anyway.
Yeah, I get it. The thickness of his skin and all. But, like, yeah. The movie Memoirs of an Invisible Man does it where everything that goes into him you can see. That's why he has to eat with clothes on. So that way he doesn't see it.
If he had, like, a shit on deck, you would just see, like, a floating turd.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, no, the food becomes part of his body after a certain amount of time.
I was about to say, where do you draw the line?
I think in this version it's the same thing. I think he says that for a time the food is visible inside me before it's properly digested. I think that's in this version.
You know what? I think you're right. I think I do remember that line.
You should be able to see the smoke inside his lungs. Realistically, because it's not part of his body. I think, again, it would be inhaled into his body and then it should become invisible, but for a time you should be able to see it. The fluttering around the pajamas here is the more problematic example of the effects, but it still looks really good.
Yeah.
Like, again, in what it's achieving at the time. Yeah, this is the bit where he calls either the Popo or his boss and is like, shit's gotten very real. I think Kemp's really good, though, as well. He's not as good as Claude Rains, obviously, but he's appropriately wormy and not in an over-the-top way, which is good. Oh, he's not dead. I forgot about that. So he didn't strangle him to death. He just hasn't been driven to murder yet. That's an important distinction.
Should have just pushed him out the window like I suggested.
That certainly would have been more effective, but clearly he hasn't been driven to murderer yet. Although he thought he did, and that he didn't, and that's kind of interesting.
You know what else would have been effective? Dump all that whiskey behind the bar, and then just light a match.
Yeah, but if you're naked, that's very dangerous. This look for the Invisible Man was always more iconic to me. The robe and the dark sunglasses, the bandages. No rubber nose.
Kemp not having or something. Like, he could just shoot the man.
He does have a gun. I just think that he's afraid to get it. I'm pretty sure he does. I think we see it later on.
I mean, realistically, you could probably shoot him, because the time it's going to take him to undress.
Right. Yeah, but I think he's just scared of how unhinged he is more than anything else. His mannerisms are also very evocative. I just think everything about his performance is just... I think it's my favorite of all the classic Universal Monster performances as well. I know Karloff and Lugosi and Chaney, all of them had their own important elements, but I just think Claude Rains is the one that I enjoy the most. He's got that powerful voice and that charismatic but still manic personality. You know what he kind of reminds me of, like, The Mask in a weird way.
The Mask?
Like a murderous, I guess more of like the comic book Mask, where he's a murderous, like the in this being invisible removes your limitations, you know, like, because now that he's invisible, he can go off and murder people and serve his own ends, you know. And the comedy of it is obviously more subdued, but I don't know. I think in that sense, it's also kind of Jekyll and Hyde. You know, all these stories of men who have these abilities to remove limitations from themselves, always in the direction of gratuitously trying to see what they can do with their newfound abilities and freedom. And I think Griffin in this film definitely is an extreme. Because you're right, because I think realistically, if Kemp wasn't such a pussy, he could probably take Griffin, but he's terrified of him. I mean, look at those 4-paneled sunglasses. Like, I'd be scared shitless of that too. To be fair. Realistically.
Terrified by bad fashion, are you?
Here we go. That's better. We had some invisibility, but the bandages weren't. Good shit, man. Good shit.
Move your visible ass.
One other big problem. These 1940s cars, 1930s cars, excuse me, terrible. That rug would
really...
not be enough. You would need, like... His coat and hat wouldn't be enough. You need, like, fucking furs from the Arctic to do well in a car like this in England. Insanity. Windows. Close up your car, please. They were trying to make cars like fucking horse carriages still.
I think they were still often referred to as horseless carriages.
Bullshit. Move on. Living in the past. Like The Mummy.
Yes, far be it from us to criticize a movie from 1933 for living in the past, but...
I'm not above that sort of thing. Fuck you.
I mean, I'm pretty sure... I don't know.
You're pretty sure, but you don't know. I see. That's your whole life, isn't it?
At some point, he probably should have just killed Crane, right?
Kemp?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, I just think that he's a pussy. He doesn't think that he can. I think he's just too scared. Like, think about later on when what he makes the cops do to protect him.
Eventually, Claude Rains is going to have to go to invisible sleep, right?
That's what happens. I mean, that's how he gets done in later.
Yeah, so why doesn't he just wait for him to go to invisible sleep and then, like,
he does.
Stab him?
It doesn't work. I mean, he doesn't try to stab him. He calls his boss. He comes with his daughter. Actually, that works. Because then he prolongs his death at the very least. He prolongs his life, rather, until his death. Are you at all excited for the Johnny Depp version of The Invisible Man they're going to make?
No.
Me neither.
Is it going to have Russell Crowe in it?
I mean, maybe. I mean, he's supposedly like the connective tissue between all those Dark Universe movies. I just want to know how close it would be to this, or how much, like, they're going to try and make it like a Captain Jack Sparrow action heist movie, you know? I
just wonder if all their Dark Universe plans are still in play, considering what a colossal failure the movie was.
Yeah, but it did fine overseas. It made $400 million thanks to China.
The fucking Chinese.
And besides, they're already sold on Bride of Frankenstein and The Invisible Man. They're cast and ready to go.
Why are they making a Bride of Frankenstein movie before they've even made a Frankenstein movie?
They did that before. They remade Bride of Frankenstein in the 80s with fucking Sting in it, without making a Frankenstein movie first.
That's a terrible idea. They're Batman v Supermaning it.
Yeah, well, you know. What do you want me to do? Work at Universal.
Maybe
First murder. Hey man, I'm not opposed to it. Hey Universal, if you want to hire me, Dylan McCandless says that that's a thing that should happen.
You should get a job at Universal Studios and work your way up through.
Thank you for outlining one of my childhood life goals. I mean, not specifically for Universal, maybe, but you know.
You started as like a roller coaster operator. Eventually, you become.
That sounds awesome. I'd love to do that for a job.
Eventually, a position where you can say, "Hey, this Dark Universe shit. Maybe we should put on the brakes."
Maybe we should make a fucking Dracula movie before we make like a Bride of Frankenstein movie.
And they'll be like, "What are you talking about? It took you 20 years to work your way up through the ranks. The Dark Universe is over." And you're gonna be like,
"Well, let's do it again."
There's a fatal flaw in my plan. I see.
Invisible Man slays policeman. Oh, of course the paper has all these men in it. Look at how fucking tall he is.
Another news video killed the radio star.
This dude is like fucking a dude standing on top of another dude.
So when he drinks, do you just see water sloshing around in there?
You would think. I don't think we're gonna, because he's got his little bandages on.
See, I wouldn't be a very effective invisible man because I eat so much that there would just always be something digesting in there.
Just imagine the bandage just lights on fire. He just burns his own head off, and Kemp's just like, well, I guess I'm free.
There's another idea. Wait for him to go to sleep, lock all the doors down, collect the insurance money.
What if the smoke gives him cancer and you can see the cancer cells inside of him, and that's what gives him away in the end?
Yes. That's an intriguing idea because technically the cancer cells have mutated into something that is no longer him. And therefore, would they be visible or would they also remain it? Imagine that. You just see a tumor floating around.
It would be a whole bunch of them if he has cancer.
And it's like, it's the Invisible Man.
It's the tumors.
I can tell by his tumor. And he'd be like, he's not a tumor.
It's not. I would sleep with a visible knife in my hand if I was the Invisible Man. Let's take away this bedsheet, boys. It did its job well over the years, but it's time for it to go.
I'd like to see the Invisible Man versus the Invisible Agent.
I mean, that's a sequel to this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of.
It's kind of an oxymoron now that I think about it. I'd like to see the Invisible Man versus the...
Yeah, exactly.
You
would say it would just happen. You would have to believe that it's happening more than anything else.
It would be mostly just sound effects.
It would sound more like sex than anything else.
Every now and then, Jones punching sound effect.
Yeah, somebody hitting a piece of meat.
You know what I've noticed with movie trailers now?
What?
You remember for a while the sound that was in every movie trailer was bwah.
Yeah, the Inception transform thing.
Now there are less bwahs, but in every
now
fucking
there's
trailer,
more just like soundtracks.
But in every fucking trailer, at some point, you're liable to find a doom.
Pop song.
I prefer the pop songs to the bwah.
I think all trailers should do that. If you can find a good song, because I mean it makes the movie look appealing.
Especially if something explodes in the trailer, then you'll hear the doom. You know the one I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I know the doom.
Doom. It's not as easy to imitate as bwah.
They put it in Kong Skull Island all throughout the movie.
In the actual movie?
Yeah. Like whenever Kong
right.
hits something, doom.
Doom.
There's a lot of slow-mo. It's like a slow-mo effect. This is very Godzilla 54. They're all reacting to the Invisible Man. Like, we have to fucking use depth charges to get him.
Quick, board up all the doors and windows. Cover all outside surfaces with wet paint. Too bad nobody has sprinklers yet. You could just turn on your sprinklers, and then if he walks through them, you'll know. Because you'll see a vague outline.
Pretty sure that's what somebody suggests. Wait for it to rain or be a fog, so that way he'll light up like he'll fill up like a balloon. One of them says. Also, realistically, if he sweats, wouldn't you be able to see the sweat?
I guess not, because it's a bodily fluid, so it's still considered part of him.
Do you think that all those books on his shelf behind him are fake?
Same reason you don't think his veins walking around.
Right, I guess.
Can you imagine if somebody went invisible except for veins?
I kind of wish we got to see the movie where Griffin and Kemp are out there trying to fuck over the world, you know? Where Griffin is using him as a pawn to help him achieve certain goals. That's awesome, don't you think? Or at the very least, they should make an Invisible Man movie where the Invisible Man, like, coerces somebody into helping him, achieve some end. And it's unwilling only by threatening him. I think that would be awesome. To actually see that go through without murdering him before anything can be accomplished.
My dear, your former fiancé has turned himself invisible. That make coitus very complicated. Hey, the bells on that phone look like boobs.
These are the kind of phones I would want if I was to have a landline again.
You know what he could have done? Poisoned his food.
I don't know if he has poison, though.
Oh, everybody has poison.
Also, he might presume that if he kills him, he might turn invisible. It just happens. And how is he going to deal with that?
He could be like, hey, I killed the Invisible Man, and then he turned visible.
Yeah, but this is... Well, yeah, if he did it now, it would be fine. Yeah, but how would he prove it?
I mean, or he could just get rid of the body.
Due
discreetly.
process, Dylan. Yeah, but he's not... Again, he's a pussy. He's a pansy. He's not doing that. He ain't getting rid of bodies.
He's way too much of a Jerry. He's not even a Morty.
See, he fucking... The Invisible Man already knows what he did. And the only reason he doesn't kill him is because it's Flora. I like that he doesn't put the sunglasses on. It gives him this more kind of mournful expression that matches when he says, Flora, I must prepare to see her. How come the slits on the eyes keep changing size?
Don't worry about it.
I am worrying about it. Fuck you. I'm terrified for my life. Now the one on the left is so much smaller than the one on the right.
Don't worry about it.
There's like a smaller one in the middle. It's so weird. Now the one on the left is bigger. I'm so happy to finally have you in my house, Flora.
Come here, Flora. I'd like to show you my fauna.
But I can't because it's invisible. Hey, baby. He's the Johnny Bravo of 1933, as well as the Mask of 1933.
Do the monkey with me.
So listen, babe, the moon, totally my bitch, alright? That's the world we're living in now. Do you have any idea how rare these sunglasses are? The fact that Kemp had these, what a magical world we live in.
Are they? Are they rare? Have you looked into this?
How many of sunglasses have you seen that look like that in the world?
I've seen other sunglasses that had, lenses on the sides, but none that looked exactly like these.
It's very coincidental that Kemp, that's all I'm saying.
But perhaps they were more common in 1933. Who knows?
Perhaps just like staph infection.
Well, I'll show you a staph infection.
You can't show it to the Invisible Man because he's invisible.
If the Invisible Man
that's one of the problems with invisibility that I've heard is like you wouldn't be able to see if you were invisible because the light wouldn't be able to reflect with your eyes.
Huh. Wait.
That's why it wouldn't work.
If an invisible person gets an infection, would you see the bacteria?
What if an alien, like a facehugged this person? Would you see the alien inside of them?
Actually, shouldn't you already be able to see all the millions of bacteria living in their intestines?
Yeah, presumably they also have like shit living in their hair. All people do, like tiny microscopic organisms. But again, they're microscopic. You really wouldn't be able to look at them unless you looked at them with a microscope.
Right. Well, the thing with bacteria is, though, if you get enough of it together, you can see it. It's sort of a slimy mass.
That's an iconic line. Even the moon's frightened of me. It's a little weird. I don't really know what it means, but it sounds cool.
The moon still reflects the sunlight like a little bitch.
The sun will come at me like a direct man.
I notice how from the sides, the way his bandages are, he kind of looks like the Swamp Thing. Like he has this weird triangle of a nose.
Oh, the nose. Yeah, I can see it. It's like Swamp Thing. What are you smoking that I'm not? I thought I was far off with my mask comparison. You're comparing him to fucking Swamp Thing. But I get it now. I like that this is like one of the rare movies where everybody believes that there's an invisible man running around. Like there's no question about it. Like one story that we always like to call back to, Relic, in that nobody believes that there's like a monster running around until it's way too late. But in this, once somebody dies, they're like, yeah, there's an invisible man. And that's just refreshing. It's nice to see people acting logically.
It's a cool idea of the police locking arms to try and keep him from getting away.
I mean, the only thing is he'll just punch his way out. That's the thing I like about him is he's very wily and he's unpredictable. You know who awesome as an Invisible Man? Nicolas Cage.
Here we go gathering nuts in May.
Nuts in May! Either Bill Murray in the 80s would have been a great Invisible Man. Like a sarcastic Invisible Man. Although Chevy Chase kind of played that in Memoirs of an Invisible Man.
I'd kind of like Invisible Walking.
Oh my god, I can't see my own...
Me.
I can't see myself anymore. Oh.
I've
got to find myself again. It's hard when you're invisible.
Like a regular Johnson.
Oh, why do I have such long johns on?
Even the moon is frightened of me.
Here we go. I love this.
This is my favorite thing in the whole movie.
Yeah, this is like the meme moment. Just the cheerish victory that he's displaying. It's so infectious. Oh, it's so good. And the effects are amazing. Oh, this movie is so fun. Yeah.
Well, the film skipped. Did you see that?
Yeah, there was a little bit of an odd transition there.
That old fuck looks familiar.
It's not Lionel Atwill, who's a popular police officer in these films, but it's certainly an older British gentleman. I like how Kemp is kind of unhinged. It's not that he had him, but thus he does not.
Why didn't Kim just get the police to put him in protective custody until they catch the Invisible Man?
That's what they do. Sort of. They fuck it up really bad, though. Because he doesn't trust it. He thinks that he'll still find a way in, so he just wants to get out of the country, so that's what he tries to do.
Should have had them put him behind bars.
That's what they say they're going to do, and then he tries to leave the town instead. See, now he's just, like, murder happy. A lot of people think that this version doesn't hold up because of this. Like, it's just like this. It takes this total 180 shift towards he just becomes a killer. But at this point, he's unhinged. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think it's also fun that we're getting to this point now. We get all the creative, invisible instances of murder. Like, this is all like, oh my god, like, this is great, so over the top in all the best ways. Because there's no purpose to it. It's just because he can. It's almost an experiment in and of itself, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's already racked up one hell of a body count, especially by, like, Universal monster movie standards.
That's the other thing. He's going to be forever known as one of the great, like, in this world. He would be forever known as one of the highest amount of mass, like, he would have the highest body count of any mass murderer ever, wouldn't he?
Well, I don't know about saying he would be, like, very high on, like, he'd probably be the highest, like, serial killer wise. But I think in terms of mass murder, there's probably, some, I mean, obviously Hitler's up there. And
I like how he still dropped the drum heads because he's still an asshole. Here there is this invisible man stealing money and terrorizing the world. They're in here smoking. There's Dwight Fry! Hey, he's back!
Ah.
Little kid right there.
Might actually be a good idea for everybody to smoke. Just fill every room up with tons of cigarette smoke.
Yeah, because you would see him move. Because he talks about how if there was a fog, he wouldn't really be able to operate.
Oh, you know what they should do? Dry ice.
They should get Velma involved.
Pull the old Scooby-Doo. What a small role for Dwight Fry.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know for sure. He might come back briefly. We still don't see the picture of Jack Griffin. We don't get any glimpse of what he looks like visible until the very end.
That's true. And then it's just Claude Rains.
What a surprise. A very young Claude Rains, which is something we're not used to. We're used to like a Casablanca, Wolfman, visible Claude Rains.
Even
Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
This is a young, hung, full of cum Claude Rains, you know? All sitting on the floor around this guy like he's a fucking teacher. This is adorable.
Have they tried booby traps?
Well, Fred from Scooby-Doo is not there, so they wouldn't think to try that. If he's not there,
and
they're not gonna...
And by that, placing a trap in Flora's boobies.
She's also kind of flat-chested, so not really gonna work. There was no giant tits in the 30s. That's it. It's unfortunate. That's why I couldn't survive back.
They don't have particularly large butts either, do they?
No. They were so lackluster. That's exactly... How did they survive? How did they get their dicks up?
I mean, what were they going on? Personality?
God forbid. Please, get out of here with that bullshit. See, now they're talking about, like, hey, we're going to put you in protective custody. He's like, that's not good enough. You guys suck. And he's like, all right, we're going to pretend like we're putting you in protective custody, and then you can escape on your own. This is also clever, using spray guns. Because he's not going to have a weapon on him, so you don't really have to worry about him shooting you. It's more of a matter of, like, you know, standing up to him physically and being able to see him. So the paint idea.
Yeah, if you could nail him with some paintballs, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, paintball guns would be great in a modern version. Johnny Depp, if you're listening, please stop.
It's time to stop. For some reason, I find the idea of you being the Invisible Man way more offensive than you being an Indian in that one movie.
Well, because I mean, you're not a Native American, apparently.
Precisely.
Or are you? You're not.
I think I actually have some in my bloodline somewhere, probably. Yeah, on one of the sides.
I would say I don't believe you, but I can't prove that, so...
I have cousins who are of a slightly darker skinned complexion. They're still white, but you can tell they got a little Indian in them, you know.
Mm.
You wouldn't know it because I'd look a bit more Icelandic, but
I would certainly view you as Caucasian. I mean, realistically, he should have had the cops drive him out of town. He should have...
Well, realistically, he should have done a lot of things, you know, starting with, you know, murdering the Invisible Man.
Aw. This is a weirdly cut. I guess because they're using a real kitten that was unpredictable, that they've now completely covered in paint. My God, it was so quick too. This is also a great bit.
You know what I would use instead of paint spray guns?
What?
Flamethrowers.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able... Oh, yeah, I guess you would see the burns. That's what they do in Hollow. That's what they do in Hollow Man. Have you seen Hollow Man?
I mean, also there would be, you know, screaming.
Right. Presumably. Have you seen Hollow Man, though?
No.
You should see Hollow Man. It's good. And by I mean it's funny. And fun.
Imagine flamethrowering an Invisible Man. He's like, you burnt my fucking dick off, you asshole.
They do that to Kevin Bacon. Imagine that happening to Kevin Bacon.
No, I have.
Well, wouldn't you like to see it? Well, you don't really see it because he's invisible, or hollow.
Really? Why is it called Hollow Man?
Well, okay, so he's invisible, but when he puts on a rubber mask that he uses to walk around town in, when he like opens his mouth, he's like hollow. That's why he's called Hollow Man.
Oh, okay.
And the other idea is that emotionally, he's hollowed out because his humanity turns himself invisible because he doesn't interact with people on the same level anymore.
Of all the weird things they did in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I really liked the way they did the Invisible Man in that, where he used the makeup.
In Hollow Man, he goes crazy just because of psychological strain. There is no physical agent, which I like better. Oh, this fucking dude. He's got to sleep. We can get him when he's asleep. Fucking ODing on Xanax over here. So here you go, D. This is where your plan unfolds. I mean, I imagine though that this would have worked had he picked an abandoned farm, but it's because he picked a populated farm that he got fucking discovered. He shouldn't have dumb on his part.
Even if they hadn't figured out he was in there, if they had come up in there to like get some hay, they could have stuck him with the pitchfork and killed him right there.
That's what I mean. He doesn't stick him. I think he just kind of feels around him. But yeah, you're right. I love the way this guy describes it later on. There's breathing in my barn.
Realistically, he should have just looked for a cave.
That's what we described earlier. You know what? He should have done a lot of these. He sticks him with the can. Okay.
I think I found a penis.
Oh, that's another thing that helps them out. It starts snowing.
Is this guy's farm like right down the road from the police station?
Yeah, they get there very quickly, don't they?
How long of a fucking nap is the Invisible Man taking?
I guess he can't get that far because he's not drawn, realistically.
Was this in the book, him going into a barn?
I didn't finish it, remember, so I don't know.
Because if not, it strikes me as something they took from Frankenstein. There's that
It's
bit where
Frankenstein-y.
There's that bit in the Frankenstein book where he like sneaks into that family's barn.
Oh,
and
you're
lives
talking
in
about
there.
that? I guess.
Yeah, he like chills out in his family's barn without them knowing, and that's how he picks up some English.
Like
on
French, technically.
well, friend, what the fuck ever. The language Jesus spoke.
Right. We.
French, one of a few languages that I have not used on Akira Takarada.
Yeah, that'll be next year.
All right, men, I know how to get him out of that barn. We're going to use an army of termites. Gee, old man, hope you don't need your hay.
All right, D, I got two options for you. You can invisible and do anything the Invisible Man can do, or you can become the complete opposite of that, a giant man, which is the complete opposite of being an invisible man. You're like a Godzilla-sized man. Which one would you prefer?
Oh, I was about to say, just a large person, then mission accomplished.
That was all very cleverly done, by the way. They put wood posts and pulled them out in the right time, and it was really effective at showing him dying. Again, special effects incredible. Anyway, what you were saying?
I don't know. They would both be fun for different reasons. Because if you're Godzilla-sized, then most conventional weapons aren't going to do much against you, and you would to wreak a little havoc, wouldn't you?
Right. I would prefer being invisible because I feel like being Godzilla-sized would be more of a hindrance. Constantly whacking your dick on buildings and shit. Your dick would certainly... And if you get a boner, like, the whole world would be able to see it.
I think we're estimating Godzilla's height, but, I mean, whatever area you're in, they would certainly all get an eyeball.
I'm speaking for myself here, you know what I'm saying?
That's what you do, right? If you're giant, you're just ejaculating on cities.
Yeah. I'm sure that's what you would do.
Making it rain.
Oh, God. It's rain. Hallelujah.
Wait.
It's raining, man.
The Invisible Man comes, is the cum invisible?
Yeah, because that's his DNA, so sure. It's half his DNA anyway.
That's disturbing. He can spread it all over the world.
I mean, you can't see AIDS anyway, D. It's not like it being invisible would make it any easier to spread around. That's a really good effect, by the way.
But you can avoid AIDS-ridden people. Not so if they're the Invisible Man.
So you're saying it's like that joke from the Hollow Man movie where Superman's flying around. He's all horny. He sees Wonder Woman tanning nude on the Hall of Justice. He decides that he's going to fly down super quick, fuck her away before she even notices. He does it. Wonder Woman says, "Holy shit, what was that?" And then the Invisible Man says, "I don't know, but my asshole is killing me."
Was that joke from the Hollow Man?
Yep.
I've heard that joke before. I never knew where it was from.
Well, that was the Invisible Man. What did you think about it this time?
I thought what I always think. It is a damn good movie.
It's no longer one of my favorite science fiction films. I think it's fucking garbage. No, it's still entertaining. One of the more thoughtful, classic Universal monster films / science fiction films / just all-around things that I like to watch.
And possibly the most impressive, technologically speaking.
Good special effects, good performances, good ambiance, effective horror film, effective science fiction, effective comedy. What more do you want, people? God, what more do you need from me? Fuck.
It's well directed. It's well acted. It's well supervised. It's
the fucking foreman. He did a good job. The continuity director.
It's a movie.
The General Electric. He was a good boy. The best boy. He was good.
He was the best.
Yep.
As it turns out.
So yeah, no, the Invisible Man remains to be my favorite of all these, so what more do you need us to say? So that's going to do it for day 5 of Commentaries of the Night. What can we look forward to tomorrow?
All right, come back for day 6 of Commentaries of the Night. We will return to James Well and to the Frankenstein franchise.
Our only sequel on this initial of Universal monster movies.
Yes,
something that would later define this genre and franchise above all others.
Indeed. So we'll be taking a look at 1935's The Bride of Frankenstein, a movie that many would consider to be James Whale's masterpiece.
Might be my second favorite after this. This one we'll talk about it. So join us tomorrow to talk about Bride of Frankenstein.